under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Would you call the roll, please?
Cruz.
Here.
Kaleski.
Here.
Ball here. Walker.
Here.
Steggy.
Here.
Ryan Cruz.
Here.
Machinsky.
Here. Under the meeting agenda for tonight, we have under department and committee reports, item A, the water department, your wage triple reports in your packet. Item B is office of the zoning administrator. C is the planning commission. D, building and grounds committee. E is the DDA. Item A, director's monthly report is included in your packet. F, the develop filer ad hoc committee minutes are in your packet. There's been no personnel committee meeting nor board of review nor zoning board of appeals. The board of review will be meeting on December 12th. J, the sewer project. K is the fire department report in your packet, and on that, fire department would like us to consider approval to add Thomas Warren to the fire department roster upon satisfactory completion of pre-employment background check and drug testing. And then L is the PEG packet is included. Under new business tonight, we have item A, consideration of approval of a request from Linda DeVries to renew her rec center rental agreement for a one-year period beginning January 1st of 2019 and ending December 31st of 2019, offering jazzercise, dance / exercise classes 3 nights per week at a cost of $160 per month. Item B is consideration of approval of the presented Downtown Development Authority's engagement agreement from Latitude 44 and owner Tamara Vaswinka for a period from January 1st of 2019 to December 31st of 2019 in the amount of $25,000. Item C is consideration of approval of a resolution establishing poverty guidelines for exemption from property tax contributions. Item D, upon supervisor's recommendation, consideration of the appointment of 3 planning commission members to fill 3 terms ending December 31st, 2021. There were 4 applicants for 3 vacancies. Item E, upon supervisor's recommendation, consideration of the appointment of 4 Downtown Development Authority members to fill 3 expired terms ending December 31st of 2022 and 1 expired term ending December 31st of 2020. There were 3 applicants for 4 vacancies there. Item F is consideration of approval of the resolution of the Charter Township of Filer Board of Trustees pursuant to resolution number 2001-06A and 1954 Public Act 188 as amended, redetermining the total cost of services for the year 2018 and directing the supervisor to extend such costs upon the Horizon Point Special Assessment roll. Item G is consideration of approval of a street light to be installed on the corner of Maple Road and Canfield Road. Item H is consideration of approval of the Great Lakes Internet Systems Broadband Initiative. Item I is discussion of the Nelson Street office meeting room rental agreement, including the amount charged and deposit, the legal capacity, and other possible restrictions. Item J is discussion of feasibility of possible fire authority consisting of Manistee Township, the city, and Filer Township. Item K is consideration of action on the Filer Township resolution and multiple year sewer deficit elimination plan. And then we have 2 addendum items for the new business tonight. Item L is consideration of approval of sewer project drawing 11 in the amount of $336,914.10. And item M is consideration of the introduction of an ordinance to amend the Charter Township of Filer Code of Ordinances by adding Chapter 38 to define certain words and phrases, to prohibit marijuana establishments within the boundaries of the township pursuant to Initiated Law 1 of 2018, MCL 333.27951, to provide penalties for violation of this ordinance and to repeal all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict therewith. And if there's nothing else to be added, I would entertain a motion for approval of the
I so moved.
meeting agenda for tonight. Motion by Dean Cruz, support by Koloneski to approve the meeting agenda for tonight. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Under the consent agenda for tonight, item A is the minutes of the regular board meeting held November 8th, 2018. B is the financial report. C is approval of the Township General Fund expenditures, including the fire department. Those are checks numbered 36145 through 36220, with accounts payable totaling $24,921.14 and payroll totaling $12,408.08 for a grand total of $37,329.22. Item D is approval of water department expenditures, checks numbered 2547 through 2554, totaling $6,697.41. Item E is approval of sewer operating expenditure check 1002 through 1006, totaling $1,662.43. Item F is approval of sewer construction expenditures, checks numbered 150 through N151, totaling $151,753.88. Item G is approval of a budget amendment in the amount of $20,000 from the fund balance general fund to the Township Hall operating supplies. Item H is approval of a budget amendment in the amount of $2,000 from the fund balance general fund to election salaries. Item I is appointment of Betty Allen to the Board of Appeals for a 3-year term ending December 31st, 2021. There was just the one applicant for the one vacancy. Item J is appointment of Ruben Ramon to the Building and Grounds Committee for a 4-year term ending December 31st, 2022. Again, one applicant for one vacancy. Item K is appointment of Sue Mark, Betty Allen, and Ruth Scarrett to the Board of Review for 2-year terms ending December 31st of 2020. There were the 3 applicants for 3 vacancies. And then we have on the consent agenda, we have 2 addendum items also. Item L would be approval of sewer construction expenditures, check 152 totaling $14,379.61. Item M is consideration of approval of the SAM.gov registration processing letter to appoint an entity administrator and entity registration. And if there are no additions and deletions to the consent agenda, I would entertain a motion for approval.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Hachinsky, support by Brian Cruz to approve the consent agenda for tonight. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. In your packet, under communications and announcements, I put some information regarding some interest, potential interest in the Kmart building. Larry Thompson got a call, it was just early part of last week, and I happened to be in his office and spoke with the gentleman as well. But the U-Haul has been conforming a number of vacant Kmart buildings across the country into U-Haul centers. And that's what they're kind of taking a look at. He wanted to know if there was any steps he needed to follow, or if there was any interest on behalf of the township. So I told him that I told him to send me some information. I put it in the packet for tonight, and that will give them a little more time to to explore whether they want to, look at that for sure. So at any rate, there is information there. I didn't have Tammy copy all of they have a number of locations in the country where they've set this up.
I believe that's on here, isn't it? I read it somewhere.
Yeah, but he had pictures in there of all the buildings they've converted that, and I had just put a few in there for samples, but then the information regarding security and what kind of plans they have. He said they would have, the U-Haul rental equipment out front and be like self-storage inside. They have their own security.
Did you get any indication that they were looking for some sort of tax benefits, obsolete property, tax credits, or anything like that?
That never came up in our discussion. It was a preliminary discussion, and he was just kind of reaching out, and that's. So, take a look at that, and hopefully down the road we may get
Nothing there now.
more information, more interest along that line. Public comment. Any public comment? Okay, department and committee reports. You have your monthly plan report in your packet from Wade Trim. Pretty much standard again. Larry's zoning report is in your packet. Got a little bit going on there. And you notice on the back side of that, we do have two properties that we're still dealing with cleanup that are in violation of our ordinance, and he is still working on that, on both of those. Item C, you have the minutes from the Planning Commission meeting of November 20th in your packet. And item E, you have, item D, the building and grounds minutes are in your packet as well. Item E, the DDA minutes from November 26th are in your packet, as are the director's monthly report. And item F, the Develop Filer Ad Hoc Committee did meet on November 9th with Mike Corby here at the hall, and the minutes from that meeting are in your packet. And our two board representatives on that committee are Dean and Tom, and I thought they might want to give a brief synopsis of that meeting, and Linda Rogers, Planning Commission representative, is here as well, and Tamara, both were in attendance at that meeting as well. So just first of all, I guess I'd open up to Tom or Dean to give a brief report of what we heard in that lengthy meeting.
Basically what we did is went over 20 acres that we have, talked a lot about the different things that we could have in there. We then talked to the two builders, came up and they talked to us about it. Urban was there and everybody else. We took a look at it. They showed us some drawings and some pictures and some other stuff. It was just tentative and it looked really good.
I guess the thing I like about it is we got two planners, we got two board people, we got two people at large, we got two people from the DEA, and it kind of gets us all together on the same page to know what's going on when you can hear that. The only thing that what he presented to us was also part of the tribe's property, which we have no control over, but we do over 20 acres that we're talking about.
And we talked about the Indian property too.
Yeah, that's what John just mentioned, and they, and he did present a conceptual design that he is working on, I believe, in Holland, or did for Holland. Is in the process of, and that was very interesting. Tom and Dean, do you have anything else you want to add?
Well, what he showed us was kind of, with the way they set it up, there was single housing, there was double, housing for more family housing, and a lot of other stuff in it for you. And with stores underneath some of the single homes. So you would have to really look at a lot of things like that, the planning commission.
There was a lot of original adjacent to that already, to the one that's in Holland,
Right.
and it was near the college.
Tamara, Linda, anything you guys would like to add?
I guess one of the things that I was kind of, this concept that he presented, I was kind of excited about it because I think in Fowler we have a lot of single-family homes, but we don't have a lot of other different varieties of housing. And what this development in Holland, that he's this is being modeled off of that. It's a little bit lower density of housing than in Holland, but he's talking about urban lofts, stacked flats, townhouses, mixed use where there's commercial and residential in the same building, and also some relatively small footprint single-family homes. And the nice thing about this is I think that there's some unmet needs in housing. Young professionals. I know when I moved here, I couldn't find anywhere to live. They talked about how there are people that are moving into the area that are living in Ludington because they cannot find suitable rental housing. And I've heard that complaint from other people. So I think just giving people some options would keep some young professionals and maybe some retirees who no longer want the maintenance of a yard and a big piece of property. His concept was, it was really, really nice. And I think the thing that I liked about it is he had some ideas to keep things affordable. Like these single-family homes were fairly small. He was talking like maybe 800 to 1,200 square feet, so tiny, what we would consider fairly small homes. But he talked about making them in kind of a concept where you can build it in pieces. You can build the home, there's a place for a garage, you don't have to build the garage when you initially build the home. You can build a home, and then you can also put it like a breezeway attachment to connect the garage and the home together if you want it to be attached. All three of those can be built in phases. So his emphasis is really on providing a lot of different housing options for a lot of different people, and also keeping it as affordable as possible. When I moved here, if I could have found a 500 square foot, one bedroom efficiency, I probably would have bought it. I mean, because there really aren't houses like that. Nice homes that are small, suitable for one person or two people. It was a really, he's done these projects in other communities. He's got one under construction right now in Holland. I don't know, it just seemed like, he's not saying that this is the prescription for a builder. It's just one way of attracting people to look at the area and give them a vision, or a vision that possibly Fowler Township has for that property. The other thing that I think it would do for us, they're talking about incorporating some recreational space in it, which I think would be good, and trying to provide kind of a downtown, like a downtown town center area. And I think that that's something that he likes to do in his projects. He likes to keep green space, lower maintenance, smaller lots for the homes. So it was I think it was a really attractive design. I don't know if you agree with that. I was very impressed.
I was impressed.
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear that. I don't think I could have said that better than Linda, so, but the only thing I would add is that there will be a retail component to it. So we're in the heart of the DDA district. We're creating community, we're creating a town of focal, we're creating a town of fiber basically in this section of this 20 acres that will include retail. And the live, work, play is what people want. They want to live where they work and they want to be able to walk. And so this project will also incorporate the walkability. So as Linda said, it wasn't meant to be, this is what's going to happen, but it will be, once fully developed, a tool that I, as the DDA director, can use in speaking to developers and telling Filer's story so that they can be excited to come here and want to spend their money and their time here. There are a lot of other places that have infrastructure, that are on a corridor, that have vacant land. What we need to do is differentiate Filer and make us, we want to be able to have the tools to tell our story, to sell the community. And this type of tool is really what we need. So I don't know if there was anything else. If anybody had any questions. He is going to come and speak to the Planning Commission on December 18th, I believe is the next meeting. He has agreed to come and talk. So it's not meant to be open, everybody can come to those meetings. So if you guys wanted to come hear his presentation, I think it'd be a great time for you to do so.
Thank you, Linda, Tamara. Yeah, I would agree with everything that's been said. It was pretty exciting seeing the conceptual plan that he had in place for Holland and just thinking about the possibilities here. And we know we've been hearing for a long time now, there's just a very, very strong need for housing, not just here, but the whole northwest side of the state. So, more to come. Thank you. Okay, item J, the sewer project. Basically, tonight we'll be approving the final draw for the sewer project. The punch list has been pretty much completed and taken care of by owners. I met with Blake Smith and Brian Sousa last week, Thursday, and we did agree that we're going to withhold some of that final payment from owners because there are a few items that need to be wrapped up yet. And once that's done, then we'll probably approve those payments at the January meeting. That's kind of it on the sewer project, unless there are questions.
Curious, there was something on the agenda about a sewer deficit elimination plan.
Yeah.
How did we end up with a deficit?
I know. Well, and we've already done
It's
this
the
once.
state.
With what?
It's the state.
Oh,
It had to do with the way the fiscal year ended in March,
oh,
and the fact that we had the sewer project begun and we had more liabilities than assets. So it was done already one time. We've already approved it. It was sent to the state of Michigan and they denied it because it wasn't done on a yearly basis. It was only done like on 3 or 4 months to show that we were out of the red. So they sent it back and we had to redo it. That's what you have here tonight to approve again.
More hoops to jump through.
so once we get through this fiscal year, it ought to be eliminated. I mean, there's,
Yes, you can see
we have
that
enough
the
cushion
projection.
built into that project that
I don't know, maybe you didn't have one at your place over there, but it shows that
I didn't see.
$38,000 of surplus at the end of March of 2019.
Well, I didn't mean to get us off topic. You were asking about the sewer. I saw that,
Well, it's been a topic around here for days.
That was our reaction when we first
Yeah.
contacted. Okay, Okay, item K, fire department. Jim?
Well, we had 30 calls for service last month, 25 medicals, 1 fire, 4 vehicle crashes, 3 calls to Horizon Point, bringing their run total to 287 for the year so far. Tom, you got the email I sent you about the runs there? We had Manistee Cleaning come in, they did a nice job of scrubbing the carpets and the chairs and polishing the floors in the kitchen and the hallways. It looks very nice there. We also had to have frontline services come in again. We're having some difficulties with 123. The generator is giving us issues, and we've determined that it's the scene lights on the truck that are hooked to the generator that's causing the issue, and those have been repaired. And again, we have a new applicant, Thomas Moran, a nice young fellow that would like to give back to his community, so I would ask that the board approve me moving forward with having him put on the roster.
Jim, can I ask how old this fellow is? Just,
I want to say he's in his
range.
mid-20,
Okay.
25.
I'm just curious, wondering,
27.
because
I don't know
school,
exactly the
I wondered
birth
if it
was.
was the same one, because I know he's still around here, so.
And what would his position be?
Well, he'll be in training and probation for the time being.
As firefighter?
Yeah. There's also a EMS class going on up in Benzie County in Thompsonville that Benzie County is sponsoring. The Manistee County Firefighter Association, if you notice the black trailer that was sitting outside of the fire station, that is no longer there. That trailer belongs to the association, and we were inventorying it and storing it and doing some work on it for them. That went to Thompsonville for that class, and we have one individual in our department that is on the waiting list to get into class because the class was full. There was also another class offered in Mason County. That class was full. So the class in Benzie started yesterday, so I'm hoping within the next day or so, that's when they determine how many students are actually in the class, because they have to attend the first 2 classes in order to be eligible to continue on. So they had a full class, but if somebody didn't show up, then they have a spot that we may be able to get that individual in. So, other than that, we're just continuing with the station cleanup and the repairs as time allows, and we're still working on trying to figure out how to buy a TV for the training center. So, passed up a pretty good deal on it over Black Friday because we had no way to pay for it. So, we're bringing up again. Township Fire Department needs a credit card to use to purchase equipment that we need.
Why could you not, where were you going to get this TV?
They had one at Best Buy and one at Sam's Club. Both out of town. So,
Well, I don't think it'd be a bad idea to have a credit card either. I've got, I don't know, a month and a half ago, I purchased blinds for all of the office rooms down at Nelson Street from Home Depot in Lake. Just wrote a check and then submitted that. I've got to purchase a carburetor kit for our snow blower and also a foamer sprayer thing for our project in Lagoon Creek on our autumn olive, getting rid of the autumn olive out there. And those 2 items, I looked all over and even talked with ISN in Traverse City, and they couldn't tell me where I could get a foamer. I talked with businesses here in town and down in Leadington, and the information they gave me, again, is online, same with the car kit that we need. Nobody had it locally, so for those kinds of things, I don't think it would be a bad idea for the township to have a credit card.
You have a credit card policy, don't you?
Yes.
You got one years
Yes.
ago?
We have one that needs updating.
Well, probably needs updating, but yeah.
I think you need one for the township, you need one for the fire department.
You don't think one for the
If you do that, then Shirley is gonna have an issue when she does the billing, because the township expenses are gonna be on, and the fire department expenses are gonna be on the same card. You're gonna have to split those up, and we'll be into the same boat we're in right now. I mean, as far
But
as,
what's going to happen if I do a check run, it's all going to be run on one check anyway. Because the software system would join it, so one card would be okay.
Well, there'd have to
Just write down the
be,
numbers.
there'd have to be a way to,
Or get
like,
multiple
have two
cards.
different accounts on there.
you'd have to have multiple cards.
Yeah, you can do multiple cards.
More than one card
Right, yeah,
for on one account.
yeah. Mhm.
And would make it so much simpler, because then you don't have to write a check to more medical supplies and family farm and home
Well, it
and,
doesn't make
Bill
it
Royce.
simpler.
well, you write one check. I mean, you just have to write
No.
one check to Visa and you're done.
Not really. I mean, there's a lot of accounting kind of things that would have to come into play here to create that one check.
It's really no different than if you look at a Gilroy bill and you look at an Ace Hardware bill, there's still two bills there. If you separate them on the credit card, it's gonna be the same difference.
There might be two journal entries,
Oh, more than that. Yeah.
if there were two purchases, but there'd be one check to cut.
There'll be one check to cut, and after that, you would have to do the journal entry process.
So it's not gonna increase.
Yeah, there's a lot of, because the credit card policy is pretty, you have to have all of the slips in order before you can even cut the check. So it would involve a lot of getting the records to me in a timely fashion, or we would be having a penalty, because I wouldn't be able to pay for something that I don't know we really didn't get yet. But I can't see where you would use it much.
Yeah.
We're talking about ATV.
I don't-
A sprayer, you know, you're talking about two items here.
Yeah, and I don't know about the fire department, I know with the township, you know, there's been, those three instances that I mentioned also, when our coffee pot went bad, I bought one at Walmart and.
You just don't have that kind of, you just don't buy that much.
We don't have the volume, no,
Right,
but I just don't see where it would, create a problem to have credit cards.
That
When we
policy.
attend conferences and so on, it would be a lot easier, I would think.
That policy should be looked at again, it's quite old.
Well, why don't we do that? You want to put a committee together and review the credit card policy and
Well, I think you just need to pull it out and read it and see, you know, what really needs.
Where's the money now for the TV that we authorized last month?
I'm sorry?
Where's the money now for the TV that we authorized last month?
Still in the bank.
Still in the bank. 'Cause unless you want to write me a check for $1,000, and then I'll go get the TV and then I'll bring you back the receipt and the change. I mean, that's about all we can do.
We
I
can
mean,
do that
that's-
too.
But with a credit card, I mean, there's a lot of supplies that we purchase that we could get a lot cheaper if we buy them online. You can't buy them online, with, you need a credit card to do that. A lot of our medical supplies come from different companies, and, I mean, we've got some accounts with some we don't. And, I mean, a lot of times we get some pretty good deals on some supplies that we need, when you purchase them, and you purchase them now while they're having that special, or that sale, or that promotion.
One side, we got shop locally too, is another part of it. I can see getting a lot of it online.
but there's a lot of stuff I'm sure that you guys get that you can't get locally.
Yeah, that's correct.
I agree with
And
that.
I've run into a few things.
TV, you know, Meyer supports the community quite a bit, you know. And TVs are pretty cheap, even a 75 inch or whatever the heck you want.
Yeah, and what they don't have in the store, they probably can get for you anyway.
Well, let's take a look at the credit card policy then and pursue that. I'll take a look at that policy. Anyone want to volunteer to work with me on that?
Call up MTA and, yeah, I will.
Okay. Okay, is that it, Jim?
Yeah, that's it.
Oh, I make a motion, we put Thomas More in for it.
Oh, yeah, we did, we have to approve Thomas More, and I'll support that motion. So we have a motion by Dean Cruz, support by Walker to approve the hiring of Thomas More for the fire department officer. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion on the floor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Item L is the PEG monthly report, which is in your packet. Barry, is there anything you want to add to that report?
I do not have anything to add.
Okay.
You're going down to 5 people now?
That is the plan, yes, because we're having a hard time maintaining a quorum. We would certainly enjoy someone representing Filer if you can find somebody.
We've been trying to do that.
I know.
For about 3 years.
Ever since they left.
Okay, under new business, item A, tonight we have consideration of approval of a request from Linda DeVries to renew her rec center rental agreement for a 1-year period beginning January 1st of 2019 and ending December 31st of 2019 to offer jazzercise and dance classes 3 nights per week at a rental rate of $160 per month.
I will make a motion to approve it. I'll second.
We have a motion by Steggy, support by Dean Cruz to approve the contract request from Linda DeVries regarding the rec center rental agreement. Any discussion on that?
You know, last time we compared our expenses to cover that, and it's still pretty much in line as far as our utilities and maintenance and
I haven't seen any really, major spike there. But to be honest too, I haven't really sat down and reviewed all of the, utility costs there. We've seen the typical increase across the board, but there hasn't been anything major.
It's also keeping somebody in the building.
Yeah, it's real good to have somebody in there, yeah.
Sometimes they spot things
Oh, yeah,
that
and,
we don't know about.
yeah, she does. There's been a number of times she's texted me about this issue or that issue with the door, the lights, and then it can be addressed right away. It doesn't go taken care of, so. Any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the motion on the floor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item B, we have consideration of approval of the presented Downtown Development Authority's engagement agreement for Lat 244 and owner Tamara Paswinka for a period January 1st, 2019 through December 31st of 2019 in the amount of $25,000. That agreement is in your packet.
I make a motion, we approve the agreement for the EDA.
Second.
We have a motion by Kaczynski and support by Brian Cruz to approve the presented engagement agreement with Tamara Paswinka and Latitude 44. Any discussion?
Skaggy,
Yes.
Dean Cruz,
Yes.
Brian Cruz,
Yes.
Kalinowski,
Yes.
Kaczynski,
Yeah.
all yes, Walker.
Yes. Item C is...
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Item C, consideration of approval of a resolution establishing poverty guidelines for exemption from property tax contributions. That resolution is in your packet.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Motion by Dean Cruz, support by Steggy to approve the resolution establishing poverty guidelines for this year from property tax contributions. Any discussion? Go ahead, Shirley.
Ball, yes. Dean Cruz,
Yes.
Jachinsky,
Yes.
Brian Cruz.
Yes.
Stady,
Yes.
Walker,
Yes.
Kalinowski.
Yes.
Item D is consideration of appointment of 3 planning commission members to fill 3 vacancies on the commission. There are 3 terms ending December, these terms will end December 31st of 2021, and we have 3 vacancies, and we actually have 4 applicants. But I am going to, and I think we can approve these one at a time, but I'm going to recommend that we appoint Jennifer Williams to the Planning Commission.
Support.
So upon his recommendation.
Making a
here,
motion to
a
support
motion.
my
Right,
recommendation.
that's what it is.
Yeah, that's what I think. And a second.
So we need a second for that.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Kaczynski, support by Stady to approve the supervisor's recommendation of the appointment of Jennifer Williams to the Planning Commission for a term ending December 31st of 2021. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. I would also like to appoint Linda Rogers to that same term on the Planning Commission.
I'll second.
I'll make the motion.
And
Or-
Dean seconding it, so
Okay, so who's
So-
making this motion?
Dale Kalinowski made the motion to support the supervisor's appointment, and Dean Cruz is seconding that motion. I believe that's right, guys?
All right?
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor of the motion on the floor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. And thirdly, I'd like to recommend the appointment of Karen Cole for the 3rd position with the term ending December 31st of 2021.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Motion by Cruz, support by Stady to approve the supervisor's recommendation of the appointment of Karen Koch for the 3-year term to the Planning Commission. Discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item E, we have the Downtown Development Authority. And again, upon supervisor's recommendation, consideration of appointment for 4 vacancies. We have 3 applicants for those 4 vacancies. And those terms will expire December 31st of 2022. 3 of them will, and 1 will expire December 31st of 2020.
I'll make the motion.
I didn't make a recommendation yet. Okay, I would like to appoint Al Fry to one of those positions expiring.
So his term as resident at large expired?
Yes, I believe it did.
No, Dale's not.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong, yep. No, his is not expired. Tom's is expiring. Tom Chinsky's
Started.
is expiring, so I would like to recommend the appointment of Tom Chinsky to the DDA board for a term expiring
second.
December 31st, 2022. We have a motion by Brian Cruz, support by Dale Kalinowski to approve the supervisor's recommendation. Discussion?
Is this a specific type of position he's filling, like a resident?
Yeah, he's a resident at large.
Okay.
All those in favor of the motion on the floor, signify by saying
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. And we have another applicant, new applicant, Kathy Tusky, and I would like to recommend the appointment of Kathy to the DDA board as well.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Motion by Koloneski, support by Dean Cruz, to appoint, to support the supervisor's recommendation of appointing Kathy Tusky to the DDA board. Discussion?
Is this a resident at large?
Yes, this would be a resident at large. Any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion on the floor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. And finally, the last applicant is Robert Yates, currently serving on the board, whose term is up, and I would like to recommend the appointment of Bob Yates to the DDA board.
I so move.
Support.
Motion by Dean Cruz, support by Yatinski to approve supervisor's recommendation of the appointment of Bob Yates to the DDA board. Discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item F is consideration of approval of the resolution of the Charter Township of Ohio Board of Trustees pursuant to resolution number 2001-06A of Public Act 1954 Act 188 as amended, redetermining the total cost of services for the year of 2018 and directing the supervisor to extend such costs upon the Horizon Point Special Assessment Goal.
I will make that motion.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Ball, support by Brian Cruz to approve the resolution, and by the way, that amount for this year is $16,833.38. Any discussion? Shirley, you want to call the roll, please?
Dean Cruz,
Yes.
Kalinowski,
Yes.
Kaczynski,
Yes.
Walker,
Yes.
Stady,
Yes.
Brian Cruz,
Yes.
Paul, yes.
Item H is consideration of approval of the Great Lakes Internet Systems Broadband Initiative.
Gee,
We forgot G. Oh, okay, yes, I did, sorry. Back up, item G. Thank you. Consideration of approval of a street light to be installed on the corner of Maple Road and Canfield Road. This just only came up about a week to 10 days ago. I was approached by a woman who lives on that corner and has had several occasions where she feels because of darkness, people have missed the turn onto Canfield Road and they end up in her front yard, and so far there's been no major damages. And she requested that a street light be placed there to hopefully improve that situation. I did contact consumers about that, and but haven't got a cost figure back. I'm assuming it's going to be in the neighborhood of our, and we talked about an LED like we did on the corner of, well, not on the corner, but on Grove Street about 2 or 3 years ago. We put a light there in an area that was pretty dark. And the problems that compelled homeowners there to request the street light, evidently those problems have been taken care of, because I haven't heard yet any more complaints from them. So anyway, that's, I told her that I would put it on the board agenda for tonight.
Well, I'll make the motion to go ahead and get that light.
Well, wait, don't we do that with a contract?
We have to do a contract with consumers for it, yes.
So not to approve it, but to
Pursue it.
pursue it,
Pursue it.
right?
Yeah, because I haven't, I don't even remember where, my wife and I were somewhere out and about last week, Thursday or Friday, and she approached me and consumers rep. I think that was yesterday, I spoke with him. So he's gonna get the information to me. Yeah, it'll require a
He's going
contract.
to do it, he's going to drop a contract?
Yeah, he's gonna get the information, and last time we had a contract with him, so I'm assuming it's gonna be the same type of thing.
So, do we
He's
need a
gonna do that.
motion to even
So-
do that,
Well,
since you've got it underway?
yeah, I guess we don't need a motion as long as there's board approval for me to pursue that as supervisor with consumers. And then, of course, bring that contract back to the board, hopefully in January, with a cost figure. No, no, I just
It's a good idea.
want to know that it's okay with everybody here, and if so, then I'll pursue that. Now let's go to H, the Great Lakes Internet Systems Broadband Initiative proposal that they presented at the last board meeting. And we had some questions for Andy and asked him to get us some more information, and he has not been able to put that information together, primarily because he can't get an answer from, what's the name, the fiber optic people, because he'll have to pay to run the fiber optic from, I believe it's off from 31 up to the Red Apple Road Tower, and they, at this point, have not given him a cost figure, and that's going to be, that could be his biggest cost. Obviously, he talked to us before about the cost that he will incur to, to put the new electric panels in there, the hookup ready for any other potential customers that may want to come in, like a cell company or whatever, so that we wouldn't have to do that. If a company came to us and said, hey, we want to put cell service on your tower, before they can do that, there's a number of upgrades that have to be done inside the tower. And according to Andy, they generally don't do that. They require the municipality to have in place, and then they come in and sign the lease agreement or whatever, and he would be installing all of that necessary equipment and electrical so that it would be ready for somebody else to come in, as well as them. And then he talked with us the last time, of course, about the generator and maintenance of that. So until he gets a cost for fiber optic, and I told him, I had this on the agenda for tonight because he had said the last time he had hoped to get approval to begin construction in January. And, he said until he can get that information, he can hold off. But until he gets an amount from broadband people, and he said it could end up no cost to him, but it could be possibly as much as $300,000 too. So he didn't want to put anything together yet for us.
And we certainly don't want to do anything when we see numbers from him.
No, but I wanted to give you an update on that, and I know we had talked at the last meeting that he would come back with more information, and so he doesn't have that yet, and hopefully we can get that information from January. He did, I told him we didn't want to slow him up if he can get that information to us, he could approve it tonight, but he said, well, if he can't, he can't, and he said if he can't go to work on it until February or March, then so be it. But you could tell him he was here with his team that they're chomping at the bit to get going on this, so I'll keep you updated. Item I is discussion on the Nelson Street office meeting room rental agreement regarding the amount that we might want to charge, deposit, what the legal capacity is there, any other possible restrictions. And Tammy did put in a, a lease agreement like we have for the rec center, and then added some stuff there for the Nelson Street meeting room. And, in looking at that, I just feel like this board needs to take some time to review that, study that, identify concerns, issues that you can foresee with that. And, I don't see a decision coming on this tonight, but I think it's something that we had talked about it before as a possibility. So it's something that I guess at this point we need to start looking at seriously. Jot down concerns that you have, things that we need to make sure we have covered and in place. Reading those agreements, I had some concerns between the two, the differences between the two places right off the bat. And, security obviously is a big issue with the offices we have there. But we do have locks on all of those as well as the basement door. We do not have, and probably cannot have, I'm sure, for fire issues, a lock on the door leading from the kitchen into the garage. But certainly a concern is the equipment that we have stored in the garage there, so.
Parking.
And parking is always an issue.
I should ask Jim look it over too.
Yeah, we've definitely got to have,
We have an occupancy amount.
pardon me?
You have to have an occupancy limit on it, and that
Right.
all has to be calculated out.
Yeah. And is that something you can do, or do we need a
Yeah.
fire marshal in?
I can do that, yeah. There's a formula that you use.
Okay. Well, we'll look to you for that then, Jim. And in the meantime, if board members, if you will, look this contract over and just try to visualize any pitfalls or anything that might come up, concerns that we might have, issues that could arise.
Well, I think
Make
the
note.
occupancy is going to make knowing that we will be limited to certain things that we
Well,
can't
yeah,
do.
right.
there.
We know that. And we know that anything we do in there is going to be small groups,
Right.
obviously. But even at that, I think we need to consider carefully whether we want to move ahead with that or not, even with small groups. So, I know at one time I was kind of a proponent of that. And,
Yeah, but your office is there, you're not.
yeah, no, it's not that so much. Now I see some of the possibilities, some of the issues that could arise out of it. So,
They could be building fires in our fire.
yeah, we have a fireplace there.
So
So,
you have to do some,
give it some thought for further discussion. Item J is a discussion of the feasibility of a possible fire authority consisting of Manistee Township, Fire Township, and the city. Dennis and myself, and Jim, and Ron, and Manistee Township's fire chief have sat down, I think, 3 times, 2 times, and had some discussions about the feasibility of combining forces. Some of the topics of discussion have centered on manpower issues. Our fire department is down in numbers in recent years. Cost of equipment is a huge issue. So, looking at those things, the 3 municipalities have had some discussion, talked about, is that something we want to pursue? Do we want to look at it? Mr. Taylor, the city manager, did seek out funding for a feasibility study to, see what could be accomplished, kinds of savings and so forth. And we're pursuing some grant money from the state for that. that they anticipated was going to be renewed again this year, and then probably a month and a half ago, found out that that money was not going to be available this coming year, so he would still like to pursue a feasibility study, but his thought was sharing costs between the three municipalities, but the last email that I got from him said he thought that, and Dennis and I both agreed that we would bring this topic up to our boards, and he was going to bring it up to city council, but he felt that maybe we ought to give some thought to, before we go any further, a joint meeting between the two townships in the city to determine if we want to pursue that any further. So I'm throwing that out there. If the board feels that we'd like to sit down with, and Danny, let me open it up to you to throw in anything that I'm
Well, he's looking for the interest to see if he should advertise for an RFP for a feasibility study.
right.
You know, if your board or our board, the general consensus is that we're moving fine the way we are, I think the whole thing will be dropped. But if there's interest in spending money on a feasibility study, or getting an RFP on a feasibility study, which I think is, you know, the first step. But,
Who brought the subject up?
The city did. Yeah, and I think his latest email, and my take on it is this would precede looking at an RFP for a feasibility study would be a joint meeting between the municipalities to see if we want to go that route or not, put out an RFP or not. My recollection on what they were looking at previously when they were looking at applying for this grant was something in the neighborhood of $20,000 for this feasibility study. Each? Okay.
Terry, I may be wrong, but I think that's what was quoted.
I just remember that figure of 20,000.
That was just a straw grab is all that was, because he.
Well, $60,000 is a lot for a study,
Yeah, it is.
so maybe we should get that straight. Is
Well-
it 20 or 60?
Yeah.
20's a lot for us.
Yeah.
I might be wrong, but I've been wrong once before. I can't remember what it was. But I
You guys
think
talked to the Ludington people, the Mason County Authority?
Jim has.
Yeah,
He's been versed in what happened down, or what goes on down there. Traverse City had problems. In other places it works, you know, I mean, in my opinion, or what I'm gonna ask our board to do is I'm gonna ask if they're interested or not. And if they're interested, then I guess the next step is for all the boards to get together. But I don't know what that's gonna accomplish. I really don't.
What do you think, Mike?
There's a lot involved in it, and it's not something that's gonna happen overnight. And the feasibility study cost $60,000. That's probably in the ballpark, because there is so much involved in how this all works and how it gets put together. Because you not only have manpower, equipment, you also have volunteers and full-time firefighters involved. You have mass population in a city of 6,800 people compared to 2,000 people in Philo Township. There's so many things that are involved in this that feasibility study would take a considerable amount of effort to do. And so, I mean, when you said 20,000 each, I would have to assume that that's probably a pretty close estimate as to a study for that, just because of the fact that there's so much involved in it.
And Mr. Taylor has indicated that, this is not something that's going to happen quickly. It would be, it would be over a number of years before this could actually all come together. But it's a question of whether or not you want to explore it, for the future of the three municipalities or not, so.
Traverse City just pulled out of there, right?
Part of Traverse City.
Where is one working good? We always hear about the ones that don't, but where is it working good?
I can't put my finger I mean, it's all over, I guess.
I mean, if you look at Mason County, the members that are left in it, in their authority, it appears to be working well.
Did Pure Marquette pull out?
Pure Marquette pulled out, Hammond Township pulled out, and the city of Ludington pulled out.
So
And
the
it just so
smaller
happens
ones?
that those happen to be the three of the
Densely
wealthiest,
populated.
wealthiest townships, cities in that whole organization. And, I mean, because, part of this is also, buying, I mean, this authority would be buying equipment for, we have an engine that is a 2003, so, in 3 years, we're gonna be needing a new engine. So this authority then would be saying, okay, we need to purchase a new engine for Manistee Township, and a new engine for Filer. The city has brand new equipment, so they don't need one right now, so the money that's being spent into the pot gets spent on these two engines for these two departments. And that's what happened up in Traverse City, that they ran into issues with, one department was getting a bunch of equipment, and the other ones were not getting anything for a few years, because the other, one department was so far behind the others. And that's where the study has to come in, as to, okay, what type of equipment, I mean, we're looking at, Filer Township's looking at needing some equipment in the next few years, SCBA's turnout gear, all those things are all involved in that authority. The authority is what determines, okay, Filer gets new gear this year, Manistee Township gets new gear next year, city gets new gear that year after, okay? That authority, they create a board amongst the municipalities, and that authority then is the one that decides what that money is spent on. How they divide that cost up, I don't know. Is it per capita, is it per square foot, or square miles that you're covering? I don't know how that is all calculated out, but I know that everyone has to put into the kitty, and then the kitty gets spent in a joint effort for the best of all.
I know they've had infighting in Mason County.
So who's left in Mason County, the smaller townships?
Yeah, Grand Township's in it, Friesau, Fountain, Mead.
All the rural townships?
Yeah, the rural townships are in it. And again, you look at what happened there, Ludington City is they have a few employees, but it's mostly paid on call. Pure Marquette has a few employees, but they're mostly paid on call. The rest of them are all paid on call with no full-time people, so, and again, that makes a big difference. You got a building you gotta deal with. All those things have a factor involved. Which equipment goes out on a call when the tones go off? Who's gonna go to that call? What equipment comes out of Filer? What equipment comes out of the city? What equipment comes out of Manistee Township? So you get into a bigger thing. It's called the Mavis box alarm system. It's one of those deals. I know that they have it up in Mackinac. It's where it's prearranged that the instructor fire in the city, that the engine from Filer, the engine and the ladder from the city, and a tanker from Manistee Township will go to that. And the other ones are standing by, So there's all prearranged responses that you have to put together. So there's a big, huge realm of things that have to get put together to make this thing all work. And that's why it's not an easy process. It's going to take a long time. It's not something that's going to happen overnight and say, this is what we're going to do. So it takes a lot of planning, a lot of meetings, and a lot of cooperation amongst the municipalities to get this taken care of.
And people to get involved. I mean, you're gonna have somebody on board that's gonna determine what goes on in this authority. And hell, I can't find somebody to fill a planning commission, so how are you gonna get somebody to sit on a fire authority? I'm not being the devil's advocate here, I'm just saying.
I'm not either, I'm just saying that I've read and I've researched and I've looked at some of this stuff, and because we talked about this before with Filer, Stronach, East Lake, and Manistee Township around the lake, all the way around the lake, and creating a southern fire authority, South County Fire Authority. We've looked at that, you know. And I know that Arcadia and Bear Lake, they've looked at the Northern Fire Authority to combine, you know, Nakama, Arcadia, Bear Lake, Maple Grove, Glen, those types of things. You know, Dixon and Northern Township, to combine those departments. So, you know, those have all been looked at through
So when they go, when we would go to buy a truck, we're gonna be looking to buy a truck that's gonna complement other, we're not gonna buy one that Manistee Township has, because they can come with that piece of equipment.
They have to be competitive.
Yeah,
They
so
gotta
we've
be
been
on one
doing that
explode.
right along, right?
Well, yes, I mean, but we ran, when we got our automatic mutual aid agreement with the city of Manistee, we went through some pretty painstaking effort to get, because, just the hydrants, you have to look at the hydrants. The city hydrants are different than ours. Our steamer fittings don't fit on the city hydrants. We had to buy special adapters so that when we go to the city, we can hook our truck up to their hydrants. And they had to buy adapters so that when they come to us, and they can hook their truck up to our hydrants, because they're different. And why that is, I don't know why they don't make a standard fire hydrant, but they don't. So those are all things that have to be taken into consideration.
But I think at this point, the question being, is there enough interest to put out an RFP for a feasibility study? That won't cost us anything. I mean, I think that's where we're at this point. Am I correct?
That's correct. The feasibility study is going to tell you that, yeah, this will work with these 3 municipalities, or no, it won't work.
No, but I mean, the RFP will tell you what it's gonna cost,
Yeah, yes.
You'll get the bids anyway.
right?
You don't have to go forward, but you'll just know what it's gonna cost you to go forward.
It could be a determining factor.
Right, exactly.
But you all have to be able to run each other's equipment too.
Well, that's like in Mason County, when they buy an engine, they buy 6 of them exactly the same. So that if you go to Grant Township and you're from Freeso, you know how to run that truck because it's the same truck that you got in your garage. And vice versa. So when they buy equipment, they buy the same equipment.
But it takes a while to get,
It takes a long time to get there, yes. Unless you're flush and loaded and you can just go out and purchase that kind of stuff, you know. But most municipalities aren't.
We're in the market for a new bumper. You just gotta bid $510.
What, 500?
510.
you want me to write you a check?
Yeah, you would.
Well, what's the board's pleasure? Would you like to have a joint meeting of the 3 municipalities to just further discuss it? Or would you like to suggest to the city that they put out an RFP to find out how much it would cost?
I
To have a
think that's-
feasibility study?
That's the first step.
$20,000.
No, we're just.
That's a
talking
no
about-
cost.
Well, no cost, you
All
can-
right.
Not at this point, it's not a cost.
but that's coming up.
You're just requesting proposals to do a feasibility study.
But I think that you may need to meet again to determine, because somebody has to put this RFP together. So somebody that has experience with this type of project needs to put that RFP together so that you cover all the bases.
And who's that,
So
you?
you're gonna have to pay somebody basically to put together the RFP. And what that costs, I have no idea, but that's what you may need to get together on to determine, okay, you know, we'll put up $5,000 or $10,000 or $3,000 or whatever the case would be to hire this individual this engineering firm to put together the RFP. I mean, that's what I had. I had to hire a firm out of Grand Rapids to put together an RFP for mobile terminals for the police cars in 911. I mean, I had to hire somebody to do that because I didn't have the technical aptitude to determine, every connection and all that kind of stuff. So you need somebody that knows what they're doing when they design the RFP. Otherwise, you're not going to get an accurate bid on the project.
You know, am I mistaken in thinking that Tim Kozel was going to do that? Was going to put together the RFP?
Terry, I thought that I had heard that too, but I don't want to volunteer the guy. I don't know.
I don't recall that, but it very well could be.
We can at least find out if he or somebody from the city is going to do that, or if we're going to So what's your direction?
Well, you could contact Kozel from the city and find out if it's something he's able to do. If not, does he know somebody that would be able to put one together and find out from them what the cost would be? And then they can come back to all three bodies and say, hey, it's gonna cost us X number of dollars to go out and get a good RFP put together. And then we can make a decision at that point.
Okay, that sounds good. Everybody on board with that?
It's like my phone, it's in my pocket, but I don't know. Nobody calls me, just here.
You're not giving up either.
Turn that to your alarm clock, the meeting should be over now.
Waking up around that.
Okay, moving on. Item K is consideration of action on Fire Township Resolution multi-year sewer deficit elimination plan. And you have that in front of you. If you hurry, so Richard didn't get one. You want to see one?
No, well, if somebody passed me one, I'd be happy to. Yeah, this was fun. They didn't count the bond funds that you had on hand as part of the assets of the fire department?
They
Or
did.
the assets, I mean, the pipes in the ground that Elmer's had put by December 31st?
Well, we had, as of December 31st, you're talking March
Or
31st?
actually, March 31st, yeah.
Well, we had, at that point, more liabilities than we had assets. Because we had a lot of bills, but we didn't have any infrastructure, that we could go out and sell people sewer service.
Right, I mean, you have a lot of bills, but you should have money from rural development and from the DDA in your kitty.
Yes, and when we got the next check from USDA,
In
it
early April.
really took care of the plan.
It was a question of timing from the lake,
Right.
gotcha. I was gonna say, we had this all figured out, I mean, in
Yes,
fact, we de-obligated money.
It shows the bond draws on there,
Yeah.
as revenue, but just
It was timing.
time.
Timing, yeah, right, looks fine. I can't believe the Department of Treasury doesn't understand that, but apparently.
Well, it has to happen to
People, all
others.
people should know what they're doing.
I answered my own question.
Okay.
So I'll make
I'll
a
make this,
motion. Are you gonna make a motion?
I'll make it.
I'll second.
Okay, so we have a motion by Ball, support by Brian Cruz to approve the resolution on the Fire Township deficit elimination plan, multiple year sewer deficit elimination plan. Any further discussion?
Is this one we need to have a roll call or?
Yeah. Okay, Shirley, go ahead, call the roll.
Dean Cruz,
Yes.
Kalinowski,
Yes.
Walker,
Yes.
Kuzensky, Stady,
Yes.
Ball, yes, Brian Cruz.
Yes.
Okay, item L, consideration of approval of sewer project draw 11 in the amount of $336,914.10.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Approve it.
We have a motion by Stady, support by Brian Cruz, to approve sewer project draw number 11 in the amount of $336,914.10. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, you want to do a roll call?
Yeah.
So, I guess, go ahead.
Ryan Cruz,
Yes.
Walker,
Yes.
Kalinowski,
Yes.
Machinsky,
Yeah.
Ball, yes, Dickey,
Yes.
Dean Cruz.
Yes.
Item M is consideration of the introduction of an ordinance to amend the Charter Township of Filer Code of Ordinances by adding Chapter 38 to define certain words and phrases to prohibit marijuana establishments within the boundaries of the township pursuant to Initiated Law 1 of 2018, MCL 333.27951, and to provide penalties for violation of this ordinance, and to repeal all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict therewith. Yeah, questions? Because we didn't have an opportunity to see this really till tonight.
Well, the section 3802 is the guts of it. It just says, we hereby prohibit all marijuana establishments within the boundaries of the township. But let me go back and explain to you what all that means. Marijuana establishments is one of the defined terms in the initiated law, and that covers soup to nuts when it comes to recreational marijuana. That's a marijuana provider, it's a marijuana grower, it's a marijuana processor, it's a marijuana transporter. All of those are sort of subcategories of marijuana establishments. The initiated law, unlike the medical marijuana statute where you had to opt in order to have a provisioning center in your township, this is an opt-out arrangement. And under the law, the state of Michigan Department of Licensing and Regulations is got 1 year to come up with the regulations necessary to license a marijuana establishment, whether it's a provider or a grower or whatever. The statute itself is an opt-out. In other words, marijuana establishments of all kinds will be allowed in Filer Township unless you guys take action to say no. Now, it's not a binary choice. You don't have to say yes to everything or no to everything. You can also adopt an ordinance that says we want to have 2 growers, 1 transporter, 1 processor, and 3 provisioning centers, but that's normal. Or, make up whatever numbers you want for that combination of things. So it's all, nothing, or anything in between that the township figures is appropriate for the township. If you allow a marijuana establishment, you can charge that establishment $5,000 a year for administration and licensing, inspection fees. In addition, of course, marijuana is going to be taxed. And I thought I had brought the statute with me, but I left it on my desk as I left tonight. But I'm going to do this by memory. But 10% of the tax collected by the state of Michigan will be rebated to all of the municipalities that have marijuana establishments on a pro rata basis. So if Filer Township has 1 marijuana establishment and the state of Michigan has 1,000, you're going to get 1,000th of 10% of the tax that is raised by taxing all marijuana in the state of Michigan. On top of that, the counties will get 10% of the tax, again, based pro rata on the number of marijuana establishments in their counties. The county, however, has no say whatsoever in whether or not to allow a marijuana establishment in the county. That's entirely up to the townships, the cities, and the villages. So it's at that granular level, not the county level, where that decision is made. Nevertheless, the county will get 10%, or the counties will get 10% of the tax collected. 35%, as I recall, goes to the school fund, state school fund. There's another 10 or 15% that goes to fix roads and infrastructure. And then some of it obviously is kept by the state of Michigan, and I don't know if that all added up to 100%, I don't think it did, but that's the sort of the taxing regime that's going to be in place when this is all done. If the state doesn't have the regulations in place within a year, people can come to Filer Township and ask for a local license to do that. And if you adopt an ordinance tomorrow that says, yes, we'll allow marijuana establishments in Filer Township, you can set up a licensing scheme to license those right away. You have certain zoning rights. The state of Michigan regulations would prohibit a marijuana establishment in any zoning district that is exclusively residential. So those areas in Filer Township would not be allowed to have a marijuana establishment in them. But the ag residential or the forest residential districts, which are not exclusively residential, you could have them, as well as your commercial, industrial, and other types of zones. The state of Michigan is also prohibited from licensing a marijuana establishment within 1,000 feet of a public or private school, kindergarten through K-12, unless the local municipality permitted a smaller distance. So you could say we'll allow these within 500 feet of a public school if you wanted to. Now, I don't know anybody that would want to, but I mean, that's part of the standard. On top of that, there is a referendum provision that if you would say, you know, if you would adopt this, if 5% of the registered voters who voted in the last election for governor signed a petition, they can force you to allow marijuana establishments in Filer Township. So there's a referendum provision that can basically overrule the township board on that. And I know that in other municipalities that we represent, that's one of the things that people are looking at, is they're looking at the vote totals. I know in a couple of the wards in Lighton, we had sort of a public hearing on this at a committee meeting the other day. And it was very well attended by people that were, you know, very much in favor of doing this. Interestingly, a lot of people that hold medical marijuana cards because they can't find medical marijuana anywhere locally in northern Michigan. And so they are looking for these sort of recreational locations to provide the medical marijuana that they need for their family members and so on. But the politicians, the mayors and so on, are also looking at these and saying, holy mackerel, you know, this passed overwhelmingly in our community. You know, what are they going to think of us if we say no after, you know, the voters in Filer Township? I don't know what the vote was for Proposition 1 in Filer Township, surely, but did it pass in Filer Township? No. It did not? Okay. So you don't have that problem. But there are places where obviously it passed by a wide margin, and so those municipalities are looking at this going, well, wait a minute, if the voters approved it and they approved it overwhelmingly, you know, we better think about not just saying no and deal with the referendum. So,
And this only references recreational.
this is only dealing with recreational marijuana, correct? The medical marijuana is sort of the complete opposite of this. You have to opt into the medical marijuana establishments. And this one, they're going to be allowed whether you like it or not, unless you opt out. Now, of course, marijuana becomes legal in Filer Township regardless Thursday. marijuana within the limits allowed by the statute in Filer Township. All you've got control over is the establishments. You cannot prohibit people from transporting marijuana through Filer Township, so long as they don't have more than 2.5 houses and, you know, the other limits.
So you can keep it,
Yeah, you can make sure, yeah.
Good.
Some municipalities are looking at a moratorium. I know the city's looking at a moratorium. George and I have had a conversation. I don't know that a moratorium does you any good, because just saying we're not going to do anything means it's going to be allowed. The statute that was adopted by the voters says if you don't want this, you have to take affirmative action to say no. A moratorium would make sense if this was an opt-in statute where we say we're not going to decide whether we opt in or not because we want to study, you know, where it would be appropriate under zoning and so on. In this case, if you don't opt out, I don't think saying we haven't made up our mind yet is going to prevent this from happening in Filer Township on an unlimited basis because you haven't done anything to restrict the numbers or say no by adopting an ordinance that opts out. So.
If you always change your mind. And
What's that?
If you opt out.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that's been my advice to my clients is if you're not sure, just opt out and, you know, think about it and then take your time and opt back in, as it were. One way to do that, if you think you might forget, is put a sunset clause into something like this. So we're going to opt out, but this opt-out statute or this opt-out ordinance it expires on December 31st, 2019, unless we decide to do something different in the meantime. And then that sort of forces your hand to decide by next December, are we going to continue to opt out, in which case we'll just simply renew this statute. Are we going to do something different? What are we going to do? So.
So
the problem then is we have to remember then to revisit that.
Right, well, and yeah, you got to put it down on your tickler to make sure that.
So the state has got a year to draw up the language.
Licensing regulations,
Licensing.
right, yeah.
If not, we have to do that. If they don't come through with a,
Yeah, well, yeah, if they don't come through, then, yeah, somebody can simply come to Filer and say, I want to open up a marijuana establishment. Unless you've opted out in the meantime. And we can adopt our own licensing rules within the limits of the statute. You can't adopt regulations that are inconsistent with the statute or would have the effect of essentially nullifying what the voters have approved.
well, this here tonight is just an introduction. So the introduction,
Right.
if we would vote for that, would be put in the newspaper, and we would actually not adopt anything until at least the next meeting.
January, right.
I guess we could go with what this is and see what happens.
Probably get a few people at the meeting next time. Huh?
Well, we might, I mean, that's a good way to tell.
So at this point, we just let it sit till next meeting.
Well, no, if we would, we have to vote to introduce it.
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we introduce this ordinance to amend the Charter Township of Filer Code of Ordinances by adding Chapter 38. And so on.
All right, we did it publish.
I'll second.
Okay, so we have a motion by Walker, support by Kolomeski to introduce this ordinance. Any other discussion?
Do we need a roll call?
No.
Take the-
Not for introduction.
No other discussion? All those in favor of the motion on the floor, signify by
for, just to consider, developing a streetlight policy as our street light poles get damaged or you're going to buy a new one. You consider buying ones that are structurally stronger than what we already have, ones that would allow banners to be placed on them. Right now, the poles that are out there are too lightweight. We've been told that you can't put a banner on them. And so as you have damage to them, or you're talking about buying one, you consider buying ones that are stronger and that will support the banners. So it's just a recommendation that you consider. I think the DDA district would really like to be able to put banners up on those poles, put different Christmas light decorations. They're making do and they look really nice, but if those poles are stronger, there's just so many options that could be done. That is my comment.
Anyone else? Okay, Don, do you have anything else
Nothing.
for tonight? Brian?
Do we hear anything on that medical marijuana? Okay, anything?
I haven't heard any more. I can make some phone calls and try to find out more.
Talked about last meeting was to get a proposal.
Yeah, and I haven't done that, actually. But, yeah.
Just looking at it.
Start getting more interest in that building and get competition going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nothing.
John, anything?
Nothing.
Shirley?
Nope.
Dale?
Are we gonna talk about this at the next meeting, these projects with the road commission?
Yeah, I was gonna bring that up.
Okay.
Probably in January, Mark Sullivan will be making his annual visit also.
Okay.
so
That's all right.
My wife gives you a C+ on your Christmas decoration.
Better than what you had before.
Well, and, you know, we talked about it at DDA, it's been a nightmare.
Are you talking about his personal ones? Or the-
No.
She wants head and
I think they
poles.
look a lot nicer than in previous years, but
They do it better.
they do. But we're still dealing with consumers. In fact, I talked with Kelly yesterday about the poles that still are not working, and actually there were 5 that were not working when they installed the Christmas lights. And after contacting consumers at that time, 3 of them got repaired and were working, and now there's 3 new ones that are working. So we're still with 5 not working, and 2 of those, the street light itself is working, so I'm not sure if it's the outlet. I know last year was a lot of issues with GFIs on those outlets. So anyway, I'm in communication with Jeff Kelly, trying to get that resolved, and I told the PDA today, I think I'm gonna maybe step above him a little bit and see if we can get a little more action on it. Contact one of my former students and basketball players who works for consumers.
Gave me a big check.
Good position, what's that?
A big check.
Yes.
You could give us that.
It is.
Anyway, in response to Dale's question, I just got this from Mark Solden on Thursday of last week, and so Brian and Tom and myself went out and did a little surveying, and then we requested proposals from the road commission on 2 sections of roadway. And like I said, I just got those on Thursday, so I wanted to make sure you have them to look at, review, and be ready to take some action on in January. Okay? And with that, I have nothing else. With that, I would entertain a motion for
I
adjournment.
make a motion
Motion by Cruz, support by Cruz, Dean and O'Brien to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you.